is the Pegasus Podcast, presented by Night Sports Now. UCF news, views, and a few hot takes. Now, here are your hosts, Bailey Go Knights Adams and Christian Charge On Simmons.
Welcome into episode 160. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCASimmons, and at Night Sports Now. UCF beat Villanova 48-14. I don't know that there's a lot that we're going to be able to take away from this game, but on a very college football day, I'll take a drama-less game like this. How are you,
I was going to
Christian?
say, like, it's because usually it's just like, yeah, UCF did exactly what they're supposed to do. They beat Villanova. Who cares? Because I was even thinking, like, this is unusual for me, but by like early in the third quarter, I was just kind of like, I'm done. I was like, I think I'm ready for this to be over. But then you look around the rest of college football today, we have Cincinnati Bearcats, inventors of nighttime, losing to Miami, Ohio at nighttime, which is pretty crazy. We have Oklahoma State got destroyed by South Alabama. Regular Alabama went to USF and almost lost. So like Texas was struggling with Wyoming late into the fourth quarter. Like I'm going to take UCF just going out there and being one of the very few teams and Colorado State are tied right now. Being one of the Florida State almost lost to Boston College. It's been a day. It's been a day. Yeah. And UCF appears to be the only team across all of college football that went out there and was like, we're just going to do like what was expected. And
but Tennessee also lost to Florida. I know Tennessee got a different level.
Blown out by Florida, basically. I mean, yeah. So it's just Baylor struggled with Long Island University, which like not all FCSs are equal. Like Long Island University like doesn't even like have a fully scholarship roster. Like that's just like guys. Like it's like I could try really hard and maybe have a shot at Long Island University. Like it's
you get on the roster if you want to
get on the roster.
You play, but you get on the roster.
So UCF going out there and making things just boring as hell by being so absurdly dominant that like there was like Villanova, like UCF players could have just like been like, we're going to play with like 6 men just to make it interesting. And Villanova still probably wouldn't have scored much more than they did. So
Villanova had
very nice night.
Villanova had under 100 total yards, like with like 4 minutes left in the third quarter. Like they were like 89 yards. And that was like right in the middle of their first touchdown drive. But
their quarterback went into halftime with a negative passer rating, which I don't know if I've seen before.
Wasn't he like 1 of 9 for 1 yard?
Yeah, his passer rating was negative 33.3 at halftime. So do with that what you will. But
I've never seen that.
Timmy McClain's quarterback though.
Yeah.
Timmy McClain. So let's talk about Timmy. So I'm going to level with you. Around after his first 3 drives had finished, I was like, UCF's not going to win any more games because that's just how I react to things. That was a very dumb take, and I'm not being entirely serious. I wasn't, but he definitely looked really uncomfortable on his first few drives. He had a couple throws that weren't great. He had a couple reads that weren't great. He looked, honestly, it was almost like he looked uncomfortable in his own skin. And I think that that's to be expected when this was his first game action since 2021. I mean, I know he had a lot of experience in 2021, but still that's a big adjustment after a year off. But what made me happy and really pleased is that giant disclaimer, there's just only so much you can take away from an FCS game. And when I say only so much, there's almost nothing you can take away from it, which makes this podcast pointless, but welcome in anyway. And he really, really, really seemed to settle in. And after a few more drives, he seemed more comfortable. He seemed more in command of the offense. He seemed to have a good vibe with the rest of the team. Really good chemistry with the receivers, which was a little bit of a surprise given he hasn't been the guy, but he had some really sharp throws as the game went along. He had a dart to Jalen Griffin late in the game. He had a couple nice passes, and by the end of things, it felt like his team a lot more. It felt like really, okay, I think that he settled in. This is something they can actually build off of, and maybe Armageddon is not going to occur in the few weeks that JRP is out.
Yeah, it seemed like it was interesting because I was sitting there like, there's even when he wasn't playing that well, I was like, I don't know. Like it's whatever. Yeah. I don't know how much of the offense they're really calling for him right now.
Gus said in post game that if Gus described the play calling himself as vanilla tonight.
Okay, well then there you go. Yeah, I would assume so. And then as the game went on, like some of those throws he made, yes, it was against Villanova, but some of those throws will play against anybody. So I came away actually pretty impressed.
His throw to Javon for the touchdown, that was a throw that like JRP couldn't make. I don't think. I'll just say it. I don't think he can make that throw. So that was encouraging.
You could tell. That's the thing. You could tell like he has a really good arm, and I came away impressed with that. There were a couple of moments where it was like a little shaky, and most of it was really early on. I don't think down the stretch there wasn't really much to complain about. And there was a couple plays where you could tell like he improvises pretty well. Like there was one, I can't remember exactly what happened. He kind of like rolled to his right and he was scanning his progressions over there. doesn't find anyone, kind of evades a tackler, and wasn't able to really set his feet, but he found like an open guy across the other side of the field, and it was like
across his body on that too.
Yeah, and that was impressive. It was an impressive throw. So yeah, I mean, he did some encouraging things. I didn't think before this game that they were going to go into Kansas State next week and win, and I still don't think that.
I don't really think so either.
But I think they can beat Baylor with Timmy at quarterback.
I also don't automatically think they can't beat Kansas State. Like, I'm not like pencil it as an L. I don't feel awesome about it, but he definitely he did. Again, you just don't know anything from an FCS game, but he looked commanding enough and showed enough talent for me to be like, I don't think we have to write off this season because JRP's right. How I described him in the press box, and I'm curious if you'll agree, is he looked from this very small sample size, again against a very bad team, I was like, I think he's better than 2022 JRP right now, is where I would probably put him. I don't think there's any, I definitely don't buy we're going to be having like a controversy here when JRP's healthy. He's definitely not on that level from what we saw tonight, but I felt like his passing was crisper. His command of the offense was crisper. His reading of the field felt far beyond what we saw from JRP last year. And I'm just like, it's like they were pretty decent with how JRP was last year. He's a different, I got to say, we talked about this press box a little bit too, not to just do the compare. I want to put a giant disclaimer on all this that like, I did not come away from this game with, wow, he's better than JRP. I saw some of that on Twitter and like, I don't mean to be mean, but like, guys, like pay attention. Like, I don't know how you came away from that game. Like, yeah, this guy's better, but he protects himself in ways JRP doesn't. He was a lot more comfortable when he scrambles. It looks different than when JRP does. Like JRP basically turns into a running back when he has the ball. Yeah. Timmy still plays like a quarterback. He protects the ball. He was good at getting out of bounds. He was good at avoiding contact for the most part. So I just, all UCF needs while JRP is out is a guy who isn't going to lose them games and can get the ball where it needs to go. And he seems like that guy.
Yeah, and that's really how I felt, because I was like, and we talked about this on the preview podcast, not so much about Villanova, but just in the time that he's playing in Plumlee's place, they can just lean on the run because they have a really good running game. And they did it again tonight where, they had different guys. RJ only had 14 carries, but he was very efficient with his carries. Johnny had a pretty good day. Johnny actually had a really good day. And then Jordan McDonald down by the goal line was successful again. So they can do all this stuff on the run. And as long as McClain can do enough, not turn the ball over and make the throws when he has to, they'll be all right. And I think, we'll see. I'm still confused. I think the defense has been really good the first 3 games, but I'm not sure what type. I don't think they've played an offense yet.
I don't think they have either.
That's a concerning part.
Yeah, although they've looked really good. Like again, they're playing Villanova, so they should look really good. But like Villanova effectively could not operate on offense, and that was with Ricky Barber not playing tonight. So that was So a couple injury notes. Let's just throw those in there now before I forget about them. Ricky Barber did not play. Gus says they're hopeful they'll have him back next week. Bula Schmidt did not play. Much to the like at the beginning, I was like, "Ooh, Pegasus Podcast, we're correct." But then Gus said that he was a little banged up, and that's why they put Adrian Medley in. Medley then proceeded to get hurt while subbing in for Bula Schmidt. DeJordan Mask is out, which we figured that was coming, and Caden Kittler played most of the game instead of Metcalf. Gus said in postgame, he essentially said that he benched Metcalf, is what he said, because of the false starts, which was interesting.
Metcalf came back in at the end, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, so I don't so much buy that Metcalf is now no longer UCF center. I think that this was a game that UCF could have brought out their 4th string and still won with ease, and Gus was using it to make some points, I feel like.
I thought Kittler looked pretty good, too.
Kittler looked fine, to be honest. Yeah. Which is encouraging for the future. And I also think that Ricky and Bula, I don't know this, but I'm going to guess that those are more situations where they're probably banged up a little bit as linemen get, and this just was a game where there really wasn't a reason to put them out there. Like, I'd be surprised if those guys aren't playing next week.
Yeah, I'm going to tell myself here, did Alec Holler ever come back in the game?
He did. No? He did come back. Alec Holler, okay. It was a little scary early because I couldn't tell what happened, and since this game was on the Plus, we weren't getting replays in the stadium, so I don't
The Plus.
know
don't get me started on the Plus.
The Plus. Yeah, I heard it was bad. I've heard from a few
early
people
on. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad once it got going, but when we first started the game, there was like these just stagnant camera angles where you couldn't really see what was going on. Kind of how it was on ABC with the USF Alabama game for a while. But that was like a lightning related thing. I don't know what the UCF one was. And there was no announcers for like the first drive, like first part of the first drive. It was just the stadium noise. And it was very strange. But
you texted me that, and then I saw some of it on Twitter that it was like there's no announcers. And I was like, is that like for the game, or
I started to wonder. And then they flashed up a little thing that said were experiencing technical difficulties. It
you
was
go.
like, okay, that makes sense.
But yeah, Holler did come back in. Holler did come back in after that, which I was like, I was really, so it's like funny how you don't realize how much you value players until you think you might have lost them, because when Holler went down, I was like, cool, they have nothing. Like, I just realized I was like, they have Randy, who's a true freshman, and there's nothing behind him, like absolutely nothing. So unless you consider Zach Marsh-Wojan something. So I just, that was a scary moment, but yep, he came back. And I mean, listen, we're a quarter of the way through the season already. And this is the point where injuries start to build up a little bit. It doesn't sound like, other than JRP and DeJordan Mask, anything UCF's dealing with is serious. This is a very candid press conference from Gus, which I thought was interesting. He was just very kind of loose. And like, I was very surprised that he flat out said, basically, he said in as many words that he benched Metcalf over the false starts. He was deeply upset with and annoyed and exasperated in post game about how Townsend has now had a second punt return touchdown wiped out by a penalty. That's frustrating.
Me too. Yeah, I was also feeling that way.
I think my favorite sequence of the game was Javon wiping out a Kobe Hudson touchdown with a blindside block and then getting the touchdown himself on the very next play. It was like Javon was like
so fired up. Like he was like, it was such a like big celebration. It was like, I didn't just erase a touchdown the play before.
You know, I'm happy it happened though, because that was Timmy's best throw of the night, was the throw that wouldn't have happened if that Kobe play wasn't wiped out. So Javon just wanted Timmy to have to show us a little more, and I respect that.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, Kobe Hudson had another big, like, he had 147 yards on 6 catches.
He's up to 325 on the season. 325 yards already for 3 games.
A nice average.
Wide receiver 1? Are we ready to say it?
I don't know. I mean, I would still consider it Javon, but
I think Javon's the
production
best receiver,
wise.
but is he wide receiver 1?
I don't know.
This is a second straight game, by the way, where Townsend just kind of fell off the map. 2 touches for 1 yard.
Now I'm annoyed.
Gadget player? Summer
ask us on Monday. No,
I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what to make of that. Townsend's obviously a very good player. I think it's just, sometimes you get touches, sometimes you don't. I don't know. I'm not really. It is interesting that I would not have guessed at any point this offseason, which is what we love about college football. There's not a single thing that happened today in the nation that I would have guessed at any point in the offseason. Like, no game has made sense at all. Like, it's fantastic.
No.
But I never would have guessed at any point that like Kobe Hudson would be on a down-to-down level, the most consistent wide receiver they have. I think that's fair to say at this point.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I'm looking. Townsend's biggest impact on the game was that kick return or punt return that called back. He had 6 punt returns for 94 yards, and
he had a good night.
Of 29.
He had a good night on special teams.
Yeah, he looked good at returning punts, but but didn't have much of an impact on offense for the second straight week. But no, I mean, overall, like, what else can you really say? I mean, there was a 48-14 win. I was actually really close on my score prediction.
I don't even remember. I was trying to remember when it was. I think we were both pretty close.
I said 45-14, and I may or may not have cheered when they got to 14 points. So I was like, hey, they
and
scored
it was
touchdowns,
it was one of those 48-14 games where, like, if UCF just, I don't know, had a grudge against Villanova, they could have just put up like 80 if they'd wanted to. Like, they were doing whatever.
And the thing is,
defense was even more dominant. I mean, the Villanova offense was just horrific. I loved that we got to see more John Walker than we would because of Ricky, and I also love there was a play late in the game where John Walker. This was Villanova's backups too, I assume, but Walker, they snapped the ball. He just railroads the first guy who was on him. 2 more guys show up. He pushes through all 3 of these guys and sacks the quarterback. Like, it was literally just like ragdolling. Like, they could do nothing. And I'm like, I know these are FCS backups, but I also know that this man is going to be so fun over the next few years. Like, that was just exciting to see.
We will see more of that. We will. Trying to think what else. I know I was going to say something. Oh, it was the first touchdown drive. Even that, like, I think the broadcast said like 29 yards on that drive or penalty yards on UCF. So, like, it was like they gave up 14 points, but how much of that was really, like, I don't know. It was so in the second half, and none of it really concerned me. Not that it would anyway. But
speaking of penalties, I have a question about this. Oh, one more shout out on defense. Nakai Martinez, awesome pick. I don't know if you could see it. I don't know if you could see it on the broadcast, but he tracked that ball from the second of the quarterback's hands. Like, it was like it was like it was thrown for Nakai. Like, it was just it was really funny. But so, speaking of penalties, I had never before tonight seen offsides called on a kickoff, and I saw it get called on UCF twice tonight.
I have seen it before. I have not seen it often, and I don't think I've ever seen it called twice in one game. So they didn't show replays or anything, so I don't know what.
Like I said, we weren't getting replays, and it's not like on a kickoff I'm checking to see if everyone's lined up on side. So I don't know if it was. I don't even know if it was the same player both times. I baffled.
Not one of those things you think you'd have to worry about. So yeah, I don't know. It was very weird.
To get on
a
broader
penalty thing.
Go for it.
I was really, really scared for a quick second when they were reviewing, was it Seliskar who potentially had the targeting penalty, but it wasn't even like close to targeting. And even like on the broadcast, they were like, I don't think that, like, that would be borderline if they called that. So I was like, all right, they're not calling it. And they didn't, but he would have missed the first half against Kansas State. So
even if it was targeting, it shouldn't have been called. Like, right? Because I just don't believe that anything that should happen in the fourth quarter of a blowout against an FCS team should be allowed to influence another game. Like that would have just been, and losing Seliskar would have been bad for the first half against Kansas State.
It's not how it works, but it would have been fully accidental because like the quarterback lowered his own head and shoulder, and Seliskar was going in for like to really just wrap him up, and it just happened to like they kind of smacked helmets, but it was so incidental. But
it was even more confusing because in the stadium they say we're reviewing a targeting call on number 2, and we're like, what the hell did Lee Hunter?
Oh, they said that in the stadium.
Yeah,
Lee Hunter on that play got the flag for a late hit because he belly flopped on the top of the pile.
Which, like, if I was as big as Lee Hunter, it would be hard to resist doing that in a football game, right? Like, I just feel like I'd want to do it.
He erased the goodwill of the Memphis game last year when he pulled somebody off the pile. He manhandled somebody off the pile and prevented UCF from getting a personal foul.
My favorite thing, and he's been doing it less this year, I've noticed, and I feel like it's probably coaching, but last year, Tremon Morris-Brash had my favorite tackle style or motion ever, where he would get into the backfield and then literally do like a pounce like a puma. Like he would go like arms in the air. Like that's literally always how he would sack someone, is he would just go like a tree frog jumping onto a window. Like, just like, it was like, and it looked really cool when it works, but there were a few times where like, as he's in midair, the quarterback's like, there's a very large man in midair. I should probably move this way, but I haven't noticed it do him this year, but yeah, I'm really happy with the defense. On like a broader note though, and this is where I'm just going to turn into delusional UCF fan for a second, is, let me tell you, Big 12, not a good football conference this year.
Yeah,
not a great football conference this year. And I can't help but think to myself, I don't think UCF has to be super amazing to potentially be very good in this league, because there are a lot of teams on their schedule who I don't look good. I'm at the point, and I'm going to regret the hell out of this. So it's a late night pod. This is what it's for, right? Saying stupid stuff. I don't even think I'm worried about the Baylor game at this point. Baylor's looked terrible in every game they've played.
I thought they were going to win that game anyway, just based on the fact that it was a home game and it was going to be the first home Big 12. I was just like, there's no way we lose that game.
Right.
And now I'm like, okay, I feel good about that game.
Which I got to say, I don't know if it came through on the plus, but the crowd was electric tonight. And I'm like, if they're bringing this kind of energy and this many people for frickin' Villanova, that place is going to be like a box of TNT for the Baylor game. Like, it's going to be unbelievable.
I don't even know if there's is there a standing room only set? Because it will be standing room only. Like there's going to pack as many people in there as possible, and it's going to be fun.
This game they announced as a sellout. This was not like the thing where UCF lies. I always tell you if UCF's lying. They lied for Kent State, and I told you. I let you know about that. They did not lie. It was like I posted a couple of photos. Like I'm looking around midway through the first quarter, and I'm like, there's not an empty seat. Like they actually sold out an FCS team. That's just
every
crazy
picture I saw and every shot I saw, it was like there until people left in the second half. But early on, it was like you could tell it was full, and that was impressive. But yeah, I look at the rest, not the rest of the schedule, just the whole Big 12 schedule. Starting next week, I'm like, yeah, Kansas State lost today, but that's still gonna be tough. They're going to Kansas State. I'm sure Kansas State's gonna be pissed off. Yep. I don't feel good about that game, but I feel good about Baylor. Who's after Baylor? Kansas, I think, is still going to be tough. It's the one thing where you look at some of the teams on the schedule and you're like, well, yeah, they still have to play Oklahoma. That sucks. Like you wish they got Iowa State. You wish they got
every team in the country wishes they got Iowa State.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'll tell you right now, I feel like right now, like significantly confident, as in like I don't even think this is a toss-up. I think UCF should be favored by a good amount with Timmy or with JRP. I feel that way about Baylor. I feel that way about Cincinnati. Shout out to the losers of the Miami, Ohio game, Cincinnati. I feel that way about Oklahoma State. I feel that way about Houston. That right there is 4-5. I'm happy with 4-5. Year one in the Big 12.
That's 7 wins.
That's great. 7-5. And I think they might be able to do better if Timmy's not, if Timmy's able to really step up here.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so interesting. Because this week I was like, it was good to see him get out there, get some reps under his belt. But it's such a different atmosphere next week. Like we'll talk about it on the preview podcast. But you're going into Kansas State, and it's not an easy place to play. And he has played. I'm trying to think of what I don't know their schedule. What like tough environments he would have played in as a true freshman, outside of I guess the bounce house.
That's pretty much it.
I don't even know if that game was a sellout. Like,
but even if he did, it was 41,000. Even if he has,
why do you know that?
I just know things. What do you mean?
Okay, I don't know. It just seems like it was weird that you knew that so quickly. Like you had that ready.
What can I say? I'm a savant for attendance numbers. Even if he had, though, I mean, those games are 2 years in the rear view at this point. I just don't know how much experience that's worth. I mean, Kansas State is going to be tough. We'll talk about this more. I found a key stat that we're going to talk about on the main pod, but it's like UCF does not have a lot of experience in front of large hostile crowds, like at all. Like, just doesn't happen. But
sure don't.
And sure, Kansas State lost to Missouri in a close one. I think they're going to be motivated. On paper,
which is what you want to look.
Which is what you want to look at. UCF has twice as many blue chip former blue chip players on their roster as Kansas State does. That's another stat that we might talk about on the pod. So I don't know. On paper, UCF has significantly more talent than Kansas State.
I will not be talked into.
Now, on paper, there are many teams that UCF has beaten over the years that had more talent than them on paper. So we know that that's not worth anything, but still, it's interesting to think about. But I'm very amped up and scared for next week because it's just this huge defining moment. And I think that if UCF loses, that sucks. I just don't want to get killed. I don't think they will. If they win, which I don't know if they can, especially with Timmy, but if they win, it's going to be like one of those games.
I'm afraid.
One of those games you talk about for the rest of our lives, honestly.
I'm afraid of the narratives if they win, though.
What, when UCF is 4-0 and ranked, and the rest of the Big 12 is down, and it's suddenly like Texas UCF Big 12 championship? Like, man, it's gonna be crazy.
I don't know. Something aesthetically pleasing to the eye. UCF had 600 total yards, like just a nice round number.
Did they? 600 total yards. That's so nice of them. I love that. See, Javon, again, with the blindside block, if he hadn't done that, they would have been over 600. He gets it.
349 passing and 251 rushing. Dylan Risk got in the game at the end.
He did. And I declared in the press box that he's my new Mikey Keene.
Oh, boy.
I declared this before he'd done anything. Like, I just decided. I really do like Dylan Risk. I just have a thing for, like, true freshmen who come in and look good right away, like, and catch the coaching staff's eye right away. That's rarer than people think. And I don't know. The future is going to be interesting because I do think that. And we don't know if he will, because like I said, I don't want to take away too much from an FCS game here. Like, we just don't know how Timmy's going to look next week, but he has a real opportunity here to cement himself as the guy for 2024 over these next few weeks. If he plays really well, if the offense looks good around him, we're probably not going to be talking about a ton this offseason. Who's the quarterback going to be? He can lock that up. But if he doesn't play well, Dylan has a window there too. Dylan's not someone to just forget about. So I think it was very interesting to see him there too. UCF we saw a lot of guys that we're never going to see again for the rest of the season. He's at TCU. Jalen Griffin had his first career touchdown. Chauncey Magwood had 2 different catches.
Hopefully
Max Holler got out there. Yeah.
Was it Jalen Griffin who cost Dylan Risk potentially his first ever touchdown pass? Because someone dropped one right before the goal line, and I was really annoyed.
At this point, I just assume if it was a drop, it was Jalen Griffin.
But Dylan Risk won me over when he was like still a recruit, and he was just talking about how we were kind of not down on him. We were just like, is this guy ever going to really play? And he was just talking about how much of like how excited he was and how much UCF was like his dream school. And I was like, I like this guy already.
He also had a really nice run because the whole thing we were like, why is Gus recruiting this guy who is not his style of quarterback? And he's still not his style, but he did have a nice run. Things broke down and he was able to make something of it.
8-yard run.
Yeah, I got a shout out. This is the point of the podcast we're on. We're like, wow, backup quarterback had an 8-yard run. Discuss. But I got to say another Timmy moment I forgot to bring up that I did like was where it was a bad snap where the ball ended up on the ground and he picked it up and turned it into like a 9-yard gain. That's I liked that. He seems very calm under pressure, and you don't always see that, especially in a first start in a year and a half. So,
and I'm not sure if it was something where they were like, I think even last week and the week before, they kind of told, I don't know if they told him, but JRP ran less than he normally does. I know against Kent State, he was still putting himself in harm's way on the times that he did run.
Yep.
But Timmy only ran the ball 9 times, and it just seemed like he knew when to run. He had 44 yards, and it was just, it just seemed like he could protect himself. I know I tweeted something like early on. It was the one where he kind of like got hit right near the sideline. And I was like, he didn't slide. And I was like, does he also not know how to slide? But it seemed other than that run, he took care of himself way better.
So it seems like the way I describe it, and I want, once again, just before anyone takes anything out of context, JRP is clearly better. There is no controversy here. I can't fathom. Timmy didn't do anything tonight to make me believe that won't be the case in a few weeks. And
although he could do something next week to make me think.
Timmy has the opportunity to do the funniest thing possible.
Yeah. He goes in and beats Kansas State. I will flip so hard.
But I'm not doing it. I just don't, there's no way, but whatever. The way I would describe it, the difference in the style of play between Timmy and JRP is that I've said this before on the podcast. John Rice Plumlee is not a dual threat quarterback. John Rice Plumlee is a run first quarterback who occasionally is asked to throw the ball and looks like he wouldn't like to. Timmy feels like more of a dual threat quarterback. Like his runs tonight were more what you expect from someone who is a passing quarterback who sees opportunities and takes those opportunities. So he's not like a pure athlete like JRP where he just turns into a running back and does crazy stuff. He's more, really finds his moments for those types of plays.
You saying that made me think. Did they call any design runs for him?
They called one, if I remember
that's
right.
The thing.
I could
they
be
called
forgetting.
design runs for JRP.
They absolutely called it design run. It was just like a basic QB draw, if I remember right. They didn't call one for Timmy early on.
In that way, the offense did look a little different because they do. There's a lot of I don't know if it's a zone read or what they do because it seems like JRP keeps the ball for most of them instead of handing it off. But it was just, now that I thought, like thinking back on it, I was like, yeah, a lot of those runs were just true scrambles and not designed option plays, which.
I mean, it's hard to tell with RPOs and all that, but it seemed like most of his plays tonight were just, he didn't see the initial play and he's like, well, let me take advantage of this. I do remember one design run for him.
Yeah.
But,
it was early, right?
Yeah. And that was kind of what Gus was, it was in the first quarter. Cause that's kind of what Gus was saying was that, because someone asked him a question of like, oh, I think it was, I don't remember who asked it, but it was basically like, oh, you said last week that you might modify the offense for Timmy. Like, did you do that tonight? And that was when Gus was like, we were pretty vanilla tonight, but he said, I like the way he described it, that he said that it's basically finding how Timmy best, like finding his version of their offense was kind of how he described it. And like, there are going to be parts of what they do well that work well for him. And I'm like, I am seeing that. Like, it's like, I think that he is going to be maybe a little better than, while JRP is still the better overall player, I think he might be a little bit better at reading the moment on when to throw and when to run, and that can be valuable. So hopefully he stays calm against Kansas State, and hopefully he really shows, because like I said, they don't need to be a superstar. Just needs to be able to distribute the ball, just needs to not lose them games. And he didn't do anything stupid tonight. Like, there really weren't any moments where I was like banging my head against the table, like, I can't believe he did that. He felt like he played pretty safe, which is good.
Only real thing where it was like you would get frustrated was like, oh, it was he should have made that throw, which is I will take that more than like, you made an, like, why would you throw that? Or
you always take the, oh man, that wasn't the best throw over like my man just threw right to a DB. Like that's when you get frustrated. So, and he didn't do anything stupid. So
a couple more things that I had was just Colton Boomer continuing to be reliable. He had a 26-yarder to start the game, then a 41-yarder later on.
A wild thing happened tonight to me, Bailey.
Yeah.
He lined up for the 41-yarder, and I was in the middle of writing a tweet. Didn't bother looking up, because I figured it was going in, and I didn't process the gravity of that until afterwards, because then I hear the boom and the cheers, and I'm writing. I'm just like, and that was when I sent a tweet where I was like, 2020 UCF fans like deserve this so much, because I'm just sitting here and I'm like, oh wow, like we're back to where field goals are just a thing UCF does.
It's almost as if you were like writing a tweet for a touchdown. You're like, yeah, he makes the extra point. Like it's whatever. But it was a 41-yard field goal.
Yes,
that's what it felt like.
Yes,
right?
like it was like, I don't need to look up for this. Like it's Colton. I
Yeah.
can't believe that people wanted him benched. A bunch of nut jobs out there. Like seriously, don't listen to those losers.
Other thing, they had two guys with multi-touchdown games: RJ Harvey and then Jordan McDonald from that goal line package. He had UCF's first 2 touchdowns actually. The first quarter, and then Harvey had a 5-yard run and a 24-yard run in the third quarter. But
McDonald's second touchdown was a drive that Timmy did not participate on, because that was Nakai's pick that put him in the red zone. They just sent McDonald out and were like, run straight, and they did that a couple times, and it went in. By the way, TCU just beat Houston 36-13, so shout out to Houston, their Big 12 opener. Houston, let me tell you, gonna trash Houston for a second. Big 12 opener, their first Big 12 home game. Upper Deck was empty. Like,
they also got the whole Big 12 homecoming treatment thing too, and didn't have anything.
Hey, Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh yeah,
coming to the bounce house.
Shaq is going to be at the bounce house.
I know him. So in the press box, I was immediately asked if I know who that is after. So that was cool. But yeah, very excited about. That's someone I know. So that's cool.
Imagine explaining that like whole series of moments, because like obviously you're a very big Orlando Magic fan. I don't know why I said obviously. Anyone who follows you knows that or knows you. But it's the process, or like the whole joke behind it is like, you not knowing who Pauly D was made you get asked if you knew who Shaquille O'Neal was. And like just the entire concept of Pauly D and Shaquille O'Neal both doing sets outside the bounce house in a season where they're in the Big 12. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
None of this makes sense.
Yeah.
None of this makes sense. I don't remember who the player was, but someone made a comment about a player not playing well or looking good. And someone by me said, well, either way, like that's a Power 5 player on a Power 5 roster, talking about UCF. And I opened my mouth to correct them. Like, I was like, well, no, it's G5. And I'm like, wait a minute. UCF, it's just, this is a surreal year for a lot of reasons. Listen, we talked about all offseason, and now that this stretch is finally done, non-conference is done, we said all offseason, UCF's got to start 3-0. It's so critical to start 3-0 because then you only need 3-6 to get to a bowl, and it sets up for these 7 or 8 win seasons and things break your way. They did it. We're here. Yeah. Got to conference play, and they're 3-0. Didn't get here how I thought they would, and they've used 2 different quarterbacks, and it's been all kinds of crazy stuff. And the Boise State game made me have heart palpitations, but they did get here, and that sets up for what is hopefully going to be. I mean, when was the last time, honestly, seriously, when was the last time we got 3 games into a season and the fan base was still happy?
2019? 2019 maybe? Was that Stanford game the 3rd game or 2nd game?
It was 3rd, since he was Pitt was the 4th game, because they went FAMU, FAU, so that was it. 2019, because 2020 people were done by game 3. 2021 people were done by game 3. People were kind of teetering by game 2. 2022 we were out by the 2nd game, by halftime of the 2nd game, really. So already this is the longest we've been able to enjoy a season since 2019.
Yeah,
that's
and
exciting.
We'll see if we can extend that streak. And
but I don't think, unless I'm badly misreading the fan base, I don't think the fan base is going to be pissed if they lose that game. Now if they get crushed, there will be some annoyance. But if they lose I don't know, 35-24 or something, I'm not seeing a bunch of there will be the typical whining, but I don't think it's going to be a revolt or anything.
Yeah, no, I think pretty much everyone's kind of been fairly level-headed so far, which, again, talking about surreal things and things that don't make sense, UCF fans being level-headed, I'm not used to it. So we'll see.
We'll see how
much farther into the season we get before that changes. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else you want to get to before we go watch the rest of this Colorado game?
Yeah, uniforms look really awesome, which is no surprise.
I love the script nights on the black helmet.
It's the end of a late night podcast, so I can probably say a take. I'm always afraid to say, because I'm always worried it's going to get me canceled. I've said it on the podcast before, but you know where I'm going with this immediately. They didn't do the American flag decals for the military game, which they've all but every year but 2020 since 2016 they've done. I've said on the podcast many times, this has nothing to do with the military or with the country or anything like that. It's just, as a person who likes uniforms, I don't think the red, white, and blue UCF looks good. It looks really out of place on uniforms. It also limits what they can do, because you kind of have to do it on a white helmet because it doesn't really look good on anything else. And it's as someone who really likes uniforms, I'm always I've said on the podcast before, I'm always kind of grumbling that it's I feel like we have to lose a combo to because they have to, because they did the American flag thing once, so they have to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And part of what bothers me is because I saw some, a few fans were kind of grumbling on social media, wow, I can't believe that they would not wear the American flag decal. And I'm where's that animosity for the 90 teams that don't do that every year, or the teams that don't even have military appreciation games? And I thought UCF's game I thought they did a very good job tonight of honoring the military like they always do. And I don't think that you need a decal to do that. I did that. And is what I'm saying bad? Am I going to get canceled?
No, I don't think so. Cause you kind of took what I was going to say right out of my mouth. I was going to say, I don't think they needed to do it, because they did, I know the band did a tribute. Yeah. I don't know if that was at halftime or before the game. But they ran out of the tunnel with all the different branches on different flags and the American flag. I think, and I wasn't at the game, but I'm sure in the game they probably had different things.
Multiple things, bringing vets out on the field, telling story. I mean, it was a military game through and through. Absolutely,
you can do a military game without having to do that. And I think it's harder if UCF was SMU's colors. Right, it would be a lot easier. But when you're black, gold, white, that's what you wear. It's harder to do an American flag decal. And if they don't do it, I don't think it was one of those things where it's wow, the entire military appreciation game was just a failure. I think it seemed like a good way to honor. And yeah, I think they did well with it. I think also, it was a good look too.
It's not like they ditched the red, white, and blue to just wear a basic combo. They wore a really nice uniform. The white script knights on the black helmet looked awesome. I thought that was a really, really sweet combo. I think that this is why I love where UCF's uniforms are at right now, is you look at what they wore for Kent State and what they wore for Villanova, and those are 2 dramatically different looks, right? You've got one that is all this gold and it's shiny and blingy and it's kind of in your face and it's hell yeah. And there's this one which is just all this entire black and white look,
sleek,
almost elegant, sleek, and it's to be able to do both those things with this set, that's the value of having multiple black jerseys that play off of different elements of UCF's brand. I love where the uniforms are at right now. I think they're doing so much cool stuff. It's been 3 home run combos so far this season. I don't know how anyone can have a problem with any of these 3. I know that uniforms are opinion. Everyone's going to grumble about something, but these have been 3 really freaking good combos.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was starting to think what they could wear for. I was thinking ahead to Baylor. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Kansas State, like, I know it'll be a road combo, and I'm sure it'll be something that looks good. It's their first Big 12 game, but I'm thinking, what's it going to be for Baylor? I don't know. I think it's gonna be exciting.
What would you wear? Congratulations, you've been allowed
God.
to pick the Baylor combo. What are you going to pick?
I feel like we've done this on the podcast before, and I've picked something. I'm like, I just the first thing that popped into my mind. I was like, I don't even believe, like, I don't agree with myself.
This is also where we're at, by the way.
wear?
Like, I want to end the podcast so I can go watch both Mikey Keene and Colorado State. Instead, I'm like, tell me about what are your uniform
What
choice?
would I wear?
What would you wear? Baylor game.
It's probably gonna be a day game, isn't it?
I would assume so, but you never know. I didn't think Kansas State was going to be.
I don't know then, because I was gonna say, like, I feel like it would be great if it was a blackout, but I feel like it would only really work if it was a night game.
They did a blackout for a day game last year for the Cincy game.
Yeah, I know, but I just don't think it hits the same.
For me, it's decals because it's like I think that
Yeah.
I want to wear the chrome gold decals if it's a day game. I'd want to wear a non-reflective decal if it's a night game, obviously.
I kind of want to see a white helmet though.
Yeah, I guess they haven't worn white helmets this year yet, huh? It's been gold. You
Gold,
really want to
gold,
wear a
black.
white helmet for your first ever?
Not for Baylor though. I kind of want to see a white helmet next week. So I don't know.
Okay, for Baylor, I might do gold, black, but with the Pegasus jersey and with the white UCF decal, like the more classic version of gold, black.
Yeah, that works.
I think that would work, right? Yeah.
You bailed me out there because I really didn't have anything.
I could tell you were just kind of
I started switching to to Kansas State. I was like, oh, I actually do a whiteout for Kansas State.
You were like
Now
a step
I'm thinking
away
about
from
that
like
again.
you're like a step away from like a space game, like just like Canaveral Blue.
Do it, surprise.
Biscayne Blue, whatever you want.
Yeah, but we'll leave it there. We will not continue to. I don't even know what you call it. Just fantasize
about
future,
uniforms,
future uniform combos.
Fantasize. We're fantasizing about uniforms.
Might be. Then we will be back early next week with episode 161. I don't know if there's going to be really much that we didn't get to about Villanova. I think we covered.
I don't think we're going to touch on
and
Villanova a whole lot. I
yeah,
feel like we probably
it might not be worth it. But then we'll preview the Kansas State game, and yeah, it'll be a great time heading into UCF's first Big 12 conference game. It's just a weird thing to say. For that game, of course, after the game, we'll have our post-game podcast at Nights Out Pub. So come out and see us. That'll be fun. Next Saturday night. It'll be a late one because it's an 8:00 kick, but yeah, it'll be fun. Come out and see us. But until our next podcast, you can find us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at by Simmons, and at Night Sports Now. Thank you guys so much for being with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.